The Deep Space Monitoring Station Viral 9 went silent for half a second. That should have been impossible. Commander Viral froze as red warnings flashed across the command ring. The outer observation grid, which tracked thousands of light-years of space near a human-controlled dead zone, suddenly distorted. Stars did not blink out. They were erased as if someone had taken a blade and cut them out of existence. A technician shouted, voice breaking. "Commander, Section 12 is gone. No explosion. No energy spike. It's just missing." Viral stepped forward fast. His claws tightened around the control rail. "Run full spectrum scan. Now." The station obeyed, but only for a moment. Then the systems hesitated. Data streams slowed. Star maps flickered. Even the station's core intelligence began repeating broken fragments like a looped thought. Stability, failed, stability, failed. Viral's chest tightened. He had seen battles, collapses, invasions, but never silence that acted like a weapon. And then it happened. A sharp distortion ripped across the internal air of the station's restricted zone. No alarm triggered before it appeared. No breach warning. Just reality folding slightly out of place. A human stood there. Alive. Breathing. Come. Captain Rowan Hale. He wore a damaged salvage suit, marked with deep burn lines, as if he had passed through something that should have killed him instantly. His visor lifted slowly, revealing steady eyes that scanned the alien station without panic. No fear. No confusion. Only awareness. Viral's entire command ring erupted into chaos. Intruder inside secured zone. Lock containment. Do not fire. Repeat, do not fire without confirmation. But Rowan did not move like an intruder. He moved like someone who had already calculated every possible reaction. He raised one hand. "Stand down," he said simply, voice calm but firm. The aliens hesitated, not because they trusted him but because something in his presence felt misaligned with normal physics. As if their instincts could not fully process him. Viral stepped forward, forcing control into his voice. "Human. You are inside a restricted dimensional monitoring station. Explain your arrival." Rowan did not answer immediately. Instead, he looked upward as if sensing something beyond the ceiling, beyond the station itself. Then he spoke one line. "You already opened the door. I just followed the signal back." Before Viral could respond, Rowan tapped a device on his wrist. A pulse emitted, not outward like a weapon but inward like a key turning inside reality. The station shuddered. Lights dimmed for a fraction of a second. Not power failure, something deeper. A structural hesitation in existence itself. Several crew members staggered, gripping consoles as their vision blurred. Some reported seeing duplicate versions of the room flicker for an instant, like overlapping timelines trying to disagree. "Reality instability increasing," a scientist shouted. "This isn't spatial distortion. This is conceptual drift." Viral's mind sharpened with fear he refused to show. "What did you do?" Rowan finally looked at him directly. "I didn't do it," he said. "I confirmed it." Another pulse spread through the station, weaker this time, but more precise. Like a beacon answering a call from somewhere too large to understand. Then the station went quiet again. Too quiet. Not silence. Absence. The kind that feels like something enormous is holding its breath just outside perception. One junior officer whispered, voice trembling, "Commander, I think something is watching us through him." Viral turned sharply. Through him? But even as he spoke, the observation grid reacted again. This time not by losing data, but by detecting something new. A pressure signature formed behind Rowan's position. Not physical. Not energy-based. Something layered over space itself, like a second reality pressed against the first, misaligned but connected. The sensor struggled to classify it. Systems labeled it error. Then unknown. Then erased their own logs in failure. Rowan did not turn around. He simply said very quietly, almost like an apology. "I told them you weren't ready yet." The air behind him darkened. Just slightly, just enough to suggest depth where no depth should exist. Viral felt his instincts scream. Whatever stood behind the human. It was not entering the station. It was already partially inside it. And the station's core alarm finally triggered, too late. As reality itself began to fold a second time. The station did not recover from the fold. Instead, it adapted around the damage, like something alive learning how to keep breathing with broken ribs. Commander Viral stood frozen as emergency lights shifted into unstable patterns. Entire corridors on the station map blinked between locations that should not exist. One hallway appeared inside another, then snapped back like reality had second thoughts. And still, the human remained standing in the restricted zone. Captain Rowan Hale had not moved, but everything around him had changed. The second presence behind him pressed closer. Not fully visible but no longer ignorable. The air around Rowan looked heavier, like space itself was bending inward to protect or conceal what followed him. A technician's voice cracked through panic. "Commander, the station is syncing with something external. It's like it's being matched." Viral clenched his jaw. Matched with what? No answer came from the systems. Only hesitation. Even the station intelligence seemed unsure how to speak. Rowan finally lowered his wrist device. The pulse had stopped, but its effect remained, like a ripple that refused to disappear. He spoke again, calm but sharp. "You should not be trying to stabilize this." Viral stepped forward, anger cutting through fear. "You broke spatial integrity inside a classified monitoring station. Explain your presence, human. Now." Rowan's eyes shifted slightly, not toward Viral, but toward the flickering observation grid. "You're watching the wrong layer," he said. "That's why you're losing pieces of your station." A sudden alarm burst across multiple consoles. Observation grid failure in Sector 3. Sector 5 not found. Sector 9 is reporting pre-existence data conflict. The technicians stared at the readings in horror. "Pre-existence," one whispered. "That's not possible." Viral felt something cold settle in his chest. "Explain." Rowan finally exhaled, like someone carrying a weight no one else could see. "You're not seeing a breach. You're seeing alignment failure." The second presence behind him shifted again. This time the station reacted physically. Metal panels along the ceiling flexed inward for half a second. Not bending under force, but adjusting position like they were being recalibrated by something outside known physics. A junior analyst screamed. "Commander, the station mass is fluctuating." Viral snapped. "Where?" "All of it." That answer made no sense. But the data confirmed it. The entire station's measured mass was changing in real time, as if its existence was being redefined frame by frame. Rowan took a slow step forward. Immediately the station reacted again. Not defensively, but obediently. Lights aligned subtly around him. Doors in distant sections opened without command. Systems hesitated before every action as if waiting for his approval. One technician whispered in terror, "He's not hacking the station. The station is reacting to him." Viral turned sharply toward Rowan. "What are you?" For the first time, something shifted in Rowan's expression. Not fear. Not anger. Concern. "You activated a partial interface," Rowan said. "That's why it reached your station." Viral narrowed his eyes. "Interface to what?" Rowan paused. For a moment, the entire station felt like it was holding still just to hear his answer. Then he said, "Something you don't have language for yet." A low vibration passed through the walls. Not sound. Recognition. The second presence behind Rowan became clearer, not visually but structurally. The space behind him behaved like it was divided into layers. Some layers aligned with normal reality. Others didn't. And all of them were slightly out of sync. A scientist stumbled backward. "Commander, I'm seeing multiple spatial overlays behind the human. At least 7 distinct phase layers." Viral's grip tightened. 7? Rowan's voice softened. "Don't count them. That's how you lose stability." Too late. The station AI interrupted abruptly. "Warning, multi-layer recursive entity detected." Then it paused. For the first time since its creation, the AI did something it was never designed to do. It hesitated. Then it added a second line. "Entity response, human authorized contact confirmed." Viral stared at the console. "Human authorized? By who?" Rowan's eyes lifted slightly again as if listening to something no one else could hear. "Not who," he said quietly. "What?" The station suddenly dropped into partial silence. All external scans froze. Not shut down, paused. Like a hand had covered the universe's eyes. Then came the pressure. Every crew member felt it at once. A weight not on their bodies but on their perception. Like something massive had leaned closer to inspect them. A technician dropped to their knees. I can't tell where the station ends anymore." Viral forced himself to stay standing. "Rowan Hale, if you are responsible for this." "I'm not responsible," Rowan cut in sharply. "I'm the warning system." That sentence landed harder than any explosion. For a moment even panic stopped. Then the station lights flickered again. And behind Rowan the second presence moved closer. Not entering. Not arriving. revealing itself in fragments. A shape formed, impossible to describe fully, as if the mind refused to hold its complete outline. Each attempt to observe it created contradictions in perception. And the station's final sensor update flashed across every screen at once. Second entity confirmed, exists outside standard reality layers. Then a new line appeared beneath it, generated by the system itself without command. Warning, human is not in front of entity. Pause. Then the final chilling update. Human is inside it. Rowan finally closed his eyes. And said softly, "That's why I told you, you weren't ready." The space behind him began to open further. The station stopped resisting reality. Not because it was safe, but because resistance no longer made sense. Commander Viral stood at the center of collapsing logic. Every console around him now displayed conflicting truths. One screen showed the station intact. Another showed it already dissolved into layered fragments of existence. A third showed it never existed at all. And all three were marked as correct. Rowan Hale remained exactly where he had been, eyes still closed. The second presence behind him had fully stabilized into visibility, not as a shape, but as a structured impossibility. Space around Rowan behaved like stacked glass planes, each reflecting different versions of the same moment. A technician whispered in horror, "We're inside a recursive field. Every scan changes what we're scanning." Viral didn't look away from Rowan. "Human, this is your last chance. Explain what is happening to my station." Rowan opened his eyes. But when he did, it felt less like a person opening their eyes and more like something larger focusing through him. "You built your monitoring station on the edge of a sealed layer," he said calmly. "You were never supposed to observe beyond it." Viral's voice hardened. "We didn't build anything near sealed structures. We mapped known space." Rowan gave a faint, tired expression. "That's the mistake." A sudden shift rippled through the station. Not damage. Correction. Entire sections of the station's internal map restructured themselves. Corridors that once ended abruptly now extended into impossible geometries. Rooms that were empty suddenly contained infrastructure that had never been installed. The station was rewriting its own history. One scientist shouted, "Commander, construction logs are changing. The station is updating its past." Viral felt something close to panic rise, but he suppressed it. "That's not possible. Past events are fixed." Rowan shook his head slightly. "Not at that level." The second presence behind him pulsed. And for the first time it responded. Not in language, but in structural alignment. The station shuddered as if something enormous had shifted its weight. Then a new signal appeared across all systems. Alignment check initiated. Viral stepped forward. "Alignment with what?" Rowan answered before the system could. "With the vessel." That word hit the station like a physical force. A junior officer turned sharply. "Vessel? What vessel?" Rowan looked at them for a long moment. "The one your sensors have been brushing against for hours without understanding it." The station's external grid flared. For a split second the surrounding space revealed something massive, then instantly denied it. But it was enough. A silhouette larger than any known construct, layered across multiple dimensional planes, briefly intersected their perception. Then it vanished. A scientist stumbled back. "I saw it. I saw structure beyond the station. It wasn't a ship, it was layers of systems stacked across reality itself." Viral's mind struggled to process. "That's not engineering. That's impossible architecture." Rowan nodded once. "Human engineering." Silence hit the command deck. Even alarms seemed to hesitate. Then Viral snapped, "You're telling me humans built something that exists outside dimensional mapping?" Rowan didn't answer immediately. Instead, he turned slightly toward the second presence. "Not all of it," he said. "We only maintain it." The station reacted violently. This time, not with distortion, but with recognition. Every system simultaneously attempted to access data it was never designed to hold. Processing cores overloaded. Then stabilized again as if something had rewritten their limits. The AI spoke again. Data access expanded. Classification updated. Then a pause. Followed by a new designation. Subject, Humanity, Infrastructure Layer Guardians. Viral stared at the screen in disbelief. That classification was not there before. Rowan's voice lowered. It was always there. You just didn't have permission to see it. The second presence behind him shifted again, closer than before. Now it no longer felt like it was behind Rowan. It felt like Rowan was inside it and only partially separated. A technician whispered, "Commander, His biological signature is overlapping with the spatial anomaly. They're merging. Viral turned sharply. Explain. Rowan exhaled slowly. You activated a fragment resonance when you scanned the dead zone. That resonance reached something that was never supposed to be contacted directly. The station lights flickered. Rowan continued, I was sent to prevent full synchronization. Viral narrowed his eyes. Sent by who? Rowan hesitated. For the first time, uncertainty crossed his expression. Then he said, by the system that holds it shut. The station suddenly dropped into near darkness. Every screen froze. Then one by one they reactivated, showing the same image. Not the station. Not space. But a vast layered structure stretching beyond perception, partially intersecting reality like a hidden framework holding existence together. And at its center, Rowan Hale. Not as a pilot. Not as a human. But as a live connection point between layers. Viral's voice dropped. You're not inside the station, are you? Rowan looked at him. And for the first time, there was something like apology in his eyes. No, he said quietly. I brought the station inside us. The second presence expanded slightly. And reality began to tilt again. The station did not explode. It unfolded. Commander Viral felt it first as a silent inversion of structure. The walls did not break, but they stopped agreeing on where they were supposed to exist. Control panels shifted a few centimeters without moving. Corridors stretched, then compressed, then existed in both states at once. Every crew member froze as gravity itself hesitated. Rowan Hale stood at the center of it all, still calm, but no longer fully separate from the distortion behind him. The second presence had expanded again. Now it filled more than just the space behind him, it threaded through the station like an unseen nervous system. A technician screamed, we're losing spatial consistency. The station is no longer a single structure. Viral grabbed the railing as his boots shifted slightly out of alignment with the floor. Seal the core sectors. I can't, another officer shouted. Commands are being interpreted before we issue them. That was the terrifying part. The station was reacting faster than thought. As if something else was thinking through it. Rowan finally spoke, his voice quieter than before. It's completing the connection. You pushed it too far. Viral's eyes locked onto him. We didn't push anything. You appeared here and everything started collapsing. Rowan shook his head once. No. You detected it. That's different. The lights dimmed. Not power loss, attention shift. As if the entire station was being looked at from a higher angle. Then the first full manifestation began. Not of a ship. Not of an entity. But of structure without shape. The station's outer hull appeared to ripple, as if space itself had become fluid. Sections of metal briefly became transparent, revealing layers beneath layers. Some mechanical, some organic, some impossible to categorize at all. A junior scientist whispered, this isn't physical invasion, it's dimensional overlap. Viral forced himself forward. Rowan. Stop this. Whatever you triggered, reverse it. Rowan's expression tightened. It's not reversible anymore. A deep vibration passed through the entire station. Then came the shift. Every crew member experienced it differently but all at once. Some saw alternate versions of themselves standing in different places. Some saw the station already destroyed. Some saw humanity's ships surrounding them in silent formation. Some saw nothing but endless layered space. Reality was no longer singular. It was branching in real time. The second presence responded again, not violently but decisively. The station AI suddenly spoke without being prompted. Full alignment event detected. Then it added. Vessel interface, stabilization initiated through human anchor. Viral turned sharply. Anchor. Rowan exhaled slowly. Me. The word hit harder than any alarm. Viral stepped closer, voice rising. You're stabilizing this? You're controlling it? Rowan shook his head. I'm holding it in place. There's a difference. The station trembled again. And this time something new happened. The crew began to hear overlapping signals, not through communication systems but directly in their minds. Not words but impressions. Concepts too large to translate. One technician dropped to their knees. I can hear space thinking. Another shouted, it's not thinking. It's remembering us. Viral felt his own mind strain against it. Shut it down. Rowan looked at him with urgency now. You can't shut it down. You're inside it now. The second presence fully revealed a partial interface. Behind Rowan, space tore open, but not destructively. It opened like a layered eye slowly focusing. Within it, something vast shifted. Not approaching. Not arriving. Becoming aware of itself through their perception. The station AI changed tone again. But this time it sounded uncertain. Warning, observer effect detected. Human perception is altering system state. Viral's voice broke slightly. We're affecting it just by looking at it? Rowan nodded. Yes. That's why it stayed hidden for so long. A sudden surge passed through the station. Entire decks briefly disappeared from local perception, replaced by impossible geometries. Then returned. Then shifted again. Time itself was beginning to behave inconsistently. The crew started losing shared continuity. Two people in the same room remembered different versions of the last 5 seconds. Rowan stepped forward. And everything stabilized around him. Like he was the only fixed point left. He raised his hand slightly. The chaos slowed. Not stopped but contained. Viral stared at him. You're doing this. Rowan's voice was strained now. I'm holding the interface threshold. If I release it, the vessel fully integrates. Viral understood the implication instantly. And if it integrates? Rowan didn't answer immediately. Instead, the second presence behind him pulsed once more. And the station briefly showed them the answer. Not in words, but in vision. A vast, multi-layered structure spanning beyond known reality, with countless civilizations unknowingly existing inside controlled boundaries. Humanity not as victims, but as maintainers of something far larger than war, empire, or space. Then it snapped back. Rowan's voice dropped. You wouldn't survive the transition. Viral's grip tightened. And you would. Rowan looked at him. For the first time there was exhaustion there. I already did. The station shook violently. Alarms tried to trigger, but were overwritten mid-process. Then everything stopped. Not calm. Not peace. But suspension. Like reality holding its breath again. Rowan spoke one final line. It's choosing now. Behind him, the second presence expanded fully. And the station's entire structure began to drift out of normal space, one layer at a time. The station did not drift away. It translated. Reality around Viral 9 stopped behaving like a fixed environment and became something closer to a layered transition state. Decks, corridors, and command systems no longer occupied one place. They occupied many versions of place at once. Commander Viral stood in the center of collapsing certainty, his grip locked on a rail that now existed in 3 slightly different positions. But he was no longer fighting the station. He was trying to keep himself from being rewritten by it. Across from him, Captain Rowan Hale remained the only stable reference point. Even now, as the second presence fully expanded behind him, Rowan's expression stayed controlled, tired but focused, like someone finishing a task that had lasted longer than a lifetime. The station AI spoke again, but its voice had changed. It no longer sounded like a machine. It sounded like a system acknowledging completion. Vessel alignment, full synchronization achieved. A deep vibration passed through everything. Not shaking. Not impact. Completion. Viral felt his thoughts slow for a fraction of a second, then returned sharper than before. The sensation was horrifying, like reality briefly checking whether he was compatible. He forced himself forward. Rowan, stop this. Whatever is happening, reverse it now. Rowan didn't look at him immediately. His eyes were fixed on the layered structure behind him, where the second presence had finally stabilized into full coherence. It's not something you reverse, Rowan said quietly. It's something you survive, or become part of. The station's outer viewports changed. Space was no longer visible in the normal sense. Instead, they saw stacked reality fields, like infinite transparent layers overlapping, each containing different versions of existence. Within those layers, massive structural frameworks stretched beyond comprehension. Not ships. Not stations. But systems embedded into reality itself. One technician whispered, voice shaking, "That's not space, that's infrastructure." Another replied, "It's underneath space." Rowan finally stepped forward. And as he moved, the entire station shifted with him again, subtly, obediently, like it had accepted a new rule of physics. Viral's voice hardened. "You said you were an anchor. Anchor for what?" Rowan paused, then answered, "For keeping this from collapsing into your universe before it's ready." The second presence behind him pulsed. And for the first time it spoke, not in words, but in structured understanding that every mind in the station received at once. Not language. Concept. Humanity was not an empire. Not a species expanding through space. But a containment layer. A stabilizing intelligence embedded into reality itself to prevent something older, deeper, and far larger from leaking into existence. The station crew staggered under the weight of that understanding. Some collapsed. Some screamed. Some simply went silent. Viral remained standing, but barely. "You're saying humans built this?" he asked. Rowan shook his head slightly. "We didn't build it. We inherited responsibility for it." The station trembled again, but this time the motion felt controlled. Like a system locking into final position. The AI spoke one last formal update. "Integration complete. Vessel interface locked. Observation entity classification updated." Then it paused. And added, "Status, humanity confirmed as operational maintenance layer." Silence followed. Not empty silence. Finalized silence. Viral looked at Rowan, trying to find anger, confusion, anything to hold on to. But instead he saw something else. Understanding. "You knew this would happen," Viral said quietly. Rowan nodded once. "Yes. And you still came here." Rowan's voice softened. "Because you triggered it by accident. And accidents don't get to decide the outcome." The second presence behind him began to withdraw, not leaving but settling into a stable configuration across dimensional layers. The station stopped breaking. But it did not return to normal. It had become part of something larger. A controlled segment inside a structure that extended far beyond known reality. Viral slowly lowered his hand from the rail. "What happens now?" he asked. Rowan looked at him for a long moment. Then answered honestly. "Now you learn what you were never supposed to see, without breaking." A faint ripple passed through the station. Not danger. Not threat. Transition. The viewports showed movement in the layered structure beyond, distant shifts, like something enormous noticing the activation of a long-sealed system. Rowan's expression tightened slightly. "That wasn't supposed to notice this fast," he murmured. Viral caught it immediately. "What noticed?" Rowan didn't answer right away. Instead, the second presence behind him pulsed once more, different this time. Alert. And somewhere far beyond the layered structure, something else responded. Something older than the vessel. Something that had been waiting. Rowan turned slightly toward Viral. His voice dropped to a near whisper. "Whatever you think we just revealed." Pause. It wasn't the original layer. The station's lights dimmed again. But this time they did not flicker. They listened.